The great police chief takedown of 2025 has apparently claimed its next victim because it appears that Chief Duane Fisher from the Manheim Township Police Department in Pennsylvania has been shit canned. Let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. So, if you haven't heard, you know, we did this video a couple months back. John Bryan also did the video a couple months back talking about this Chief Duane Fisher. So what happened? Chief Duane Fisher sees a kid riding a motorcycle, and allegedly the kid had committed some sort of traffic violation. The only thing we have is Duane Fisher pulling up on him in an unmarked car in plain clothes, drawing a gun on him, and basically physically assaulting him while he's sitting on a motorcycle. If you haven't seen my original video on it, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of kick back to the highlight reel of what the actual details were. And then once you watch that and catch up to speed, we'll see you on the other side of it. Let's check it out. The first thing I want to say is that we have to address the elephant in the room in this case. And that is that if you or I had done what Chief Duane Fisher did, we would have been arrested and charged with aggravated assault. In fact, we probably would have been shot and killed and died in a cold alley. But when a rogue cop does it, while acting well outside the bounds of his lawful authority, we're told that we have to look the other way. There's nothing to see here. Why? Because he wore a badge. Not at the time, mind you, but in life at some point. Now, the only way that they'll try to spin it is if the community asks them tough questions, and the only way he'll be held accountable is if that same community refuses to accept the bullshit answers that come in response to the tough questions. Don't be fooled. This case is not about bad judgment, unless, of course, we're talking about the very weak district attorney, Heather Adams, who is certainly doing her part to make sure there's no accountability. But not to worry, we'll talk about her shortly. This case is about a deliberate abuse of authority, probably stemming from a road rage incident gone bad. It's about the filing of a false police report and a warrant affidavit in order to cover the chief's tracks. And it's about the acquiescence of a weak prosecuting attorney uniquely positioned to do the right thing, but choosing to bury her head in the sand and do nothing. Now, before we get too far afield, let's talk about what the official narrative was from the lying Chief Duane Fisher. So we'll take a look at the surveillance video here, and we'll talk about what the claims were. Chief Fisher claimed that he witnessed the rider going along with no registration plate, a heinous offense, not to be doubted. But in addition to that, he claimed that the rider was weaving in and out of traffic and doing all sorts of dangerous things and refused to stop when Fisher attempted to pull him over. But when we look at the video here, we see none of that. Okay, so it's weird. We're 10 seconds in. There's no officer even here. They're not attempting to pull him over. There's no traffic stop happening. He is casually moving his bike back and forth in order to get it situated perfectly, because it turns out he works inside this business and he's just driving to work. He's not ditching the bike. He's not running inside like he just got away from a hot pursuit. In fact, he'll later tell the news that the guy he saw, who later turned out to be the police officer, was waving at him at the traffic light. So we're 14 seconds in here before Fisher pulls up. Note again, no lights on. Clearly no sirens, because our guy is looking down. Fisher is visibly excited as he's unbuckling the seatbelt and jumping out and drawing his gun. He's there a full 8 seconds before the rider ever looks back. So that's evidence enough that there was no sirens. He must have been looking back in response to Fisher yelling at him. But when he looks back, all he sees is a guy in plain clothes pointing a gun at him and yelling at him. It doesn't look like a traffic stop. It looks like a carjacking or a kidnapping. Now, keep in mind how all of this played out. Fisher found this guy's traffic infractions to be so serious that they justified drawing a firearm. He escalated it immediately into a deadly force felony-style takedown, but he didn't call it in until after he had unsuccessfully tried to arrest the biker. The biker actually got away from him. So are we really to be expected to be so naive that we believe that this was anything more than a road-raging, off-duty cop who, like so many others like him, let his ego get him into a situation that he had to lie his way out of? Because I don't think anybody should be expected to believe that. That's what it looks like to me, and I suspect that that's what it looks like to you. What I think is that Fisher intentionally kept his lights off because he had no interest in having this encounter documented on video. And only when it became apparent that he wasn't going to win this encounter did he call it in, and he wasn't worried about the narrative that he drafted because he knew there was no video. And only when it became apparent that there was independent video that showed that the thing that happened in real life isn't what happened in his made up BS story, that's when we got to see what a cover-up looks like in Manheim Township. And we know that it was a cover-up because the video surveillance that we just went through completely contradicts Fisher's version of events. The charges were dropped, but they weren't dropped because it was the right thing to do. So don't be fooled by that. Dropping the charges was not an attempt to remedy a wrong or to seek justice. If you peel back a layer or two, you can see it for what it really is, and that is damage control. The reality is that the only thing separating a law-abiding officer from a criminal is a very thin veneer of lawful privilege afforded by the badge or the official capacity. Without the lawful duties accompanying Fisher's official capacity, we're left with a civilian using force without justification, and that's a crime, which leads me to this weak-ass district attorney, Heather Adams. Now, there's a lot wrong with this situation, but let's not lose sight of what's really important. Adams comes out with some BS about how they're not investigating the use of force because their office doesn't really do that. And since it doesn't rise to the level of criminal intent, she's not going to do anything that would warrant charges for Chief Fisher. She even went on to say that Chief Fisher called out on the radio that he was following a motorcycle with no registration plate and he provided his location. He then advised that the driver was operating the motorcycle erratically and then he ran a red light. He further indicated that the driver was passing vehicles on the right, mounting the sidewalk, using no turn signals, and cutting across multiple lanes of traffic and weaving between other vehicles. And after Chief Fisher relocated the motorcycle, he then again radioed his location, noting that he had the vehicle stopped to the rear of 1917 Fruitvale Pike. Chief Fisher then exited his vehicle with his weapon drawn and physically grabbed the driver as he began to start the motorcycle. Here's the problem. There's no evidence on the video that he tried to stop the bike. He was running the bike and trying to park it. The video proves that Fisher was not attempting to make a lawful traffic stop and that he lied about the circumstances. Whether he was calling it out on the radio makes no difference whatsoever. He has no explanation for why he chose to approach the driver gun drawn, felony traffic stop style without using lights or siren. You don't get to a felony unless you have an evasion, and you don't have a legal evasion where the person has no notice that they are being stopped by a police officer. So you can't escalate a traffic infraction to deadly force without even attempting a traffic stop and still be abiding within the confines of the law. The law requires that a person be put on notice that they're being stopped by a law enforcement officer. That didn't happen here, and the video makes it obvious. But let's go even deeper. Pennsylvania is, in fact, a stand-your-ground state. It's a state that allows lawful open carry. And had Mr. Rivera been carrying a firearm and had shot Fisher in self-defense, believing he was being attacked by an armed stranger, one, he would have been completely legally justified, but that would not have mattered. The state would have thrown him under the jail. We wouldn't be discussing what was really going on here. They'd be trying him for murder one and asking for the death penalty. And it would all be because of a power-tripping, ego-driven liar who decided to use his badge and influence to mess with a guy who had no reason to know that he wasn't being carjacked. And Fisher would have been on his way to thin blue line martyrdom, hailed as a fallen hero. That's really the brutal hypocrisy of this officer safety doctrine. Do you know how stupid and unsafe this was from an officer safety perspective? To jump out on a guy who doesn't know you're a cop with your gun in his face over a traffic infraction in a stand-your-ground state that allows open carry? You're asking to be shot. Officer safety is like the security blanket that Linus carries around. They use the words to excuse their behavior, while their conduct is completely contradictory to the sound principles of officer safety. It literally makes as much sense as Linus carrying a blanket in the summertime. No, it is not about officer safety. It's about immunity. He pulled that gun for a reason that cannot be explained away as anything other than criminal intent. The very definition of assault is to do a thing that creates an apprehension in a person that they will suffer physical contact of an injurious, threatening, or insulting nature. And you don't point a gun at someone unless you want them to so apprehend being shot that they instantly become willing to submit to your authority. And as a police officer, when you operate outside the privilege carried by your official capacity, all that is left is criminal intent. Furthermore, you can't unintentionally write a police report and file a criminal affidavit for a warrant with misleading information. Those acts alone exhibit the criminal intent. And the only way that you can't see it is to intentionally choose to ignore it. Maybe District Attorney Heather Adams needs to revisit the lesson she apparently skipped on mens rea in law school. No, Chief Duane Fisher used the power of his badge without regard for the responsibilities of his office. And the idea that he lacked criminal intent is laughable without being the least bit funny. All right, so the town put out a statement saying that they were ending their contract with the chief of police, Duane Fisher, and citing as reasons, in their meeting on June 23rd, the Board of Commissioners unanimously voted to end Chief Duane Fisher's contract with 30 days notice and 6 months of severance pay as an independent investigator looks into Fisher's handling of the arrest of Benny Pena Rivera. Now, and basically, they said in lieu of waiting for the conclusions of an independent investigation into the incident that occurred on April 30th, 2025, the board decided it was in the best interest of the township to exercise its contractual right to provide Chief Fisher with notice of its intention to discontinue his employment. Fisher was placed on administrative leave 2 weeks after the incident, basically May 15th, after the security footage was aired and showed him pulling a gun on 24-year-old motorcyclist from behind a restaurant. The township statement said that the decision to terminate Fisher's employment was not based on any finding of cause, but simply an acknowledgement that the incident in question has become untenable for all parties involved in this matter. If you don't remember, obviously the district attorney decided that they were not going to pursue charges against Pena Rivera in light of the incident, but it looks like Pena Rivera did actually plead guilty to 6 summary traffic offenses, which I guess would have been the predicate for the original stop. Careless driving, running a red light, and driving an unregistered vehicle were among them. But in exchange, the district attorney dropped the bogus aggravated assault, evading arrest, and resisting arrest charges. So I suspect there's going to be a 1983 lawsuit for false arrest because obviously, based on the video, Rivera never did any of the things that would be even construable to be assault or aggravated assault or resisting or evading. I mean, he was parked on a motorcycle. He was basically just trying to keep his balance as Fisher attacked him. So I do expect that there's going to be a lawsuit incoming. I haven't seen it yet. So if you guys hear about it, send me an email, let me know about it. In closing, I think this was the right thing to do because I think it gives at least the Manheim Township the ability to say, hey, look, we did the right thing. We cut ties with this guy. Our relationship with him is untenable, quite frankly, because the public has lost trust in him. He misrepresented the facts, probably not realizing there was surveillance video that would exonerate Rivera. And he basically burnt the bridge of credibility that he was standing on as a law enforcement officer. So basically, we don't want him to run our department anymore, which, again, I would much rather them come out and say, look, we do not agree with what he did, but they're never going to do that. They still have a lawsuit to protect against. They still have to self-preserve, and that's what they're going to do. The taxpayers are going to eat the cost of this 6-month severance, but that's probably cheaper than whatever was going to happen when he violated the next person's rights. Because again, if you don't cut out that cancer, it continues to spread. And what is going to happen when the DA says, well, he didn't mean it and doesn't charge him, and then the town doesn't fire him either? Well, what happens is he becomes emboldened to continue doing what he's doing, and then we have a serious, serious problem. So it was a good move by the township to fire him. I'll let you guys know. I'll update if there's a lawsuit incoming as soon as I find out what's going on. But I just wanted to give you the good news, put you on the update, let you know that Chief Duane Fisher is no longer the chief in Manheim Township. I don't want to take credit for it. Obviously, our videos helped. John Bryan did a video, got a lot more views than mine. I got maybe 150,000 views or so on my video. You know, look, it matters. This is the power of YouTube. We get to expose this stuff. We have a meaningful platform that gets the right people's attention. We actually, and I'm not bragging because, again, I have a small channel related to a lot of these guys, right? But we get more views on channels like mine and John Bryan's and Lackluster's and Audit the Audit and James Freeman and Here's the Deal. All of these channels that come along that show this stuff, we get more views. Even the smallest among us get more views than the local news channels do on YouTube. Now, obviously, they're getting ratings from the cable networks. That's not the same. But as far as their YouTube channels, we get more eyeballs on this stuff by putting it on channels that show police accountability stories than local news stations do. So it really does matter. And I appreciate you guys sending them along to us. Now, if anything comes up in the comments that I haven't considered, I'll probably write a companion blog over on Substack. I'd like to invite you over there. It's absolutely free to join. Substack is a newsletter website, and basically it's just a place where people can write. It actually came to prominence during COVID when Twitter was suppressing people's free speech and all that. So it's a great platform that actually stands for free speech. It's a wonderful place to just have discussions. You do not have to pay anything. Paid tiers are only for people who want to support the channel monetarily. I don't put anything on there that people have to pay for. If you don't want to go to Substack, but you would like to support the channel monetarily, I'll leave my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.